How to use pivot function in Excel. This video will assist you in the usage of the function of pivot in Microsoft Excel. By using the pivot table field list, one can add, rearrange or remove fields to show data in a pivot table or pivot chart exactly the way in which required. When you create a pivot table, Excel displays the pivot table field list so that you can add fields to the table, rearrange and reposition them as needed, or remove them from the pivot table. By default, the pivot table field list shows two sections. A field section at the top for adding fields and removing fields from the pivot table, and a layout section at the bottom for rearranging and repositioning fields. It is important to understand how the pivot table field list works and the ways that you can arrange different types of fields so that you can achieve the results that you want when you create the field layout of a pivot table or pivot chart report. The main features in a pivot table are: first, an external data source containing structured data organized as one or more fields that are displayed in the field list. Second, report filter area in the field list. Moving a field to the report filter area in the field list simultaneously moves the field to the report filter area in the pivot table report. Similarly, moving a field to the column label area in the field list simultaneously moves the field to the column label area in the pivot table report. It works the same way for row label area and values area. Let us understand the usage of pivot table with the help of a real example. Here I have the annual sales data of an entity with columns like month of sale, document number, employee code of the employee who has made the sale, the currency in which the sale has been made, and the amount column in document currency and in local currency. Now your boss has asked you to prepare the statistics of the sales made in each month for the entire year. Sure, you can use Excel. You can select each month, go to the amount in local currency, take a subtotal, paste this value in a new Excel sheet and present your data. However, won't that be tiring? Instead, if I select this entire data, click on Insert, Pivot Table, confirm the range and say OK, I have the layout of a pivot table ready in front of me. Now, since I want month of sale as the rows, I can right click on this and say add to row labels. And since I want amount in local currency as the value, I can right click on amount in local currency and say add to values. Ready. In front of me, I have the data of the sales made in each month for the entire year. Now suppose your boss says that he wants the bifurcation of these sales made in different currencies. You simply have to pick up the currency field and place it in the column label, which will give you the result of the sales made in different currencies for the entire year. Then your boss says he wants only the figures of the sales made in INR because he wants to see the domestic turn entity. In that case, you simply click on the drop down and select the option of INR. Next, your boss wants to see the sales made only in the last 3 months of the year, that is October, November and December. You unselect the data and click on October, November, December, say OK, and you have the sales of the last 3 months in INR. Simple, isn't it? What if a new column is added to the range of the data? Here, I have added the column of name of employee. The name of employee field is not appearing in the pivot table field list currently. If I want that field to appear in the pivot table, I simply have to right click anywhere on the pivot table and say refresh. By doing this, the name of employee field has appeared in the pivot table field list. If I want the month-wise sales made by different employees, I simply have to pick up the name of employee field and place it below the month of sale. This will give me month-wise data in different currencies for sales made by different employees. But I want the names of the employees to appear in B column, not in A column. To do this, I simply have to change the layout of the pivot table. Right-click anywhere on A row, click on Pivot Table Options, click on Display, and then on Classic Pivot Table Layout and say OK. This will give you the month-wise statistics of sales made in different currencies by different employees, along with the subtotal of sales made in each month. If you do not want the subtotal, you simply right click on that, click on the subtotal month of sale. Next, to see the employee-wise sales made in different months, you simply pick up the month of sale field and place it below the name of the employee. This will give you the names of employee and the sales made by that employee in different months of the year. Next, if you want to see the sales made by different employees throughout the year, irrespective of the month, you pick up the month of sale and drop it back to the pivot table field list, which will enable you to view the sales made by different employees in different currencies for the entire year. Next, your boss says that he wants to give an award to the employee who has made the maximum sales. Here, since the data is small, it's easy to locate the employee who has made the maximum sales. But for a large data, if sorting needs to be done, you simply click anywhere on the column which needs to be sorted, go to data, and click on A to Z or Z to A depending on whether you want an ascending or a descending result. Since we want largest to smallest data, we click on Z to A. This tells us that Sangeeta Kale has made the maximum sales for the year. Now you're about to finalize the sales figure for the month of December, and an employee comes and tells you that there have been a sale on 31st of December to a new client in Japan by Devashri Shankar. To add this, now if you want to add this data to the pivot table, if you right click and say refresh, the data would not appear in the pivot table. To add this data to your pivot table, you need to go to options, change data source, and then reselect the range of your data. Doing so will give you the additional column of sale made in Japanese yen. To summarize, pivot table report is an interactive way to quickly summarize large amounts of data. Pivot table report can be used to analyze numerical data in depth and to answer unanticipated questions about your data. A pivot table report is especially designed for querying large amounts of data in many user-friendly ways, subtotaling and aggregating numeric data, summarizing data by categories and subcategories, and creating custom calculations and formulas, expanding and collapsing levels of data to focus your results, and drilling down to details from the summary data for areas of interest. Moving rows to columns or columns to rows to see different summaries of the source data. Filtering, sorting, grouping, and conditionally formatting the most useful and interesting subset of data to enable you to focus on the information that you want. Presenting concise, attractive, and annotated online and printed reports. Thank you, Prachi Jain.